What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of DevTalks with your host Travian, where we talk about everything engineering and technology wise. Thank you for all the support. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and share. It goes a long way. I really appreciate it. I want to keep this show going as long as possible and have everybody learn more about the world of technology and really get in the deeps of what's going on in this space. So, this week's episode, or the episode that we have today, we're actually going to be talking about some layoffs. So, Pooja, we done a video with her, reacting to her before. Great channel. Go subscribe to her if you really like it. She recently uh dropped a video. Well, not so recently, but she dropped a video about layoffs. And recently, I know how to experience layoffs and what the culture is like after layoffs. A lot of people are experiencing it right now. So I want to go into this video and see more what they're going to talk about, so we can hear more about how other people are experiencing getting laid off from their companies, especially in the tech industry. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and share. I really appreciate it so much. You guys have no clue. And let's dive right in.
Boss sat us down and he told us this person won't be coming back. Today was his last day.
Their behavior might have changed, increase our workload day to day. It's been increasing a lot. So it's kind of, affects our mental health as well.
Did you feel like a little bit more micromanaged with having to document pretty much? Layoffs are usually a huge deal for the people that are let go, but no one really talks about the employees that get left behind at a company after layoffs happen. It's not always a better position to be in, and I wanted to explain why. That's why I spoke to real software engineers in the industry to hear more about the cultural shift at their jobs after they saw colleagues getting let go. It's obviously not the same as being the person who got laid off, but there's still a lot of negative consequences around being left behind. So I wanted to share that insight with you guys because I thought it would be helpful. There was a recent article that came out about adapting to the new normal after company layoffs. Companies expect remaining employees to just be grateful that they still have a job. And further, they expect that they'll be unaffected by their colleagues being let go. But this isn't the case. In fact, there are a ton of negative consequences to seeing your peers get laid off. For one, engagement starts to plummet at a company. People's motivation, pride, and their future and present commitment to the company starts to fall by 8 to 13% compared to companies that don't have layoffs. And
I want to stop right there real quick before. I have never knew the actual statistical measures that it took for people, how everything is when people get laid off. So looking at these charts right here, it's negative, of course. You always expect it to go in a negative aspect, but surviving a layoff, you never think how much, like, percentage wise, you no longer want to commit to the area that you're working in and where your pride goes and all of that. And I'm gonna go through my experiences in a minute, but I figure it would have been more. Like, obviously, she said first off that a lot of people are just expected to be grateful to have a job. And in one aspect, that is actually true. Like, you have to be like, you're still thankful to have a job because you have a job to keep supporting yourself or your lives or your family. And you don't really know how it impacts people and their families when they get laid off. Nobody really knows the full ins and outs and how deep it really goes with regarding that. But it impacts everybody on both ends of the spectrum. And having a job still, it does make you feel like you have some kind of safety net at times, especially for instance, last the last video that we just uploaded before this one, I'll link it at the end of this video so you guys can just go click into that, watch it. It's an amazing video. um Sai, I believe it was her name. uh Sorry if I'm wrong, but I believe that was her name. She experienced layoffs at her company, and she thought that she was safe for a moment. And then they started bringing jobs in other countries and stuff like that. And then she ended up getting laid off after. So just because a layoff happened doesn't mean we should be entirely grateful, mind you. But at the same time, having a job at a time, put some safety nets in, it makes you feel just slightly better that you survived. But there are always going to be negative impacts regardless. I'm surprised those percentages aren't way higher because I know a lot of people at the time don't want to work as hard and rather if their plans for the future might not be longer at the company anymore because they don't feel like it's as stable, they can't grow in their career. Me personally, where I'm at, no matter the layoffs that I experienced and whatnot, I have a strong feeling that I will be able to grow still within that company to get to a point that will still help my career. So when I see stuff that happens, I still have this belief because of things that are going around me and the amount that I'm just soaking in as a software engineer and what I'm able to learn that I still feel comfortable in some aspect to still strive for that. So my commitment is still higher than most probably will because a lot of people are already in certain positions and roles. I'm still fresh. I'm trying to move up and grow from that aspect. So it's not impacting me as probably as much as this has. It's kind of a sigh of relief that I haven't lost it because searching for a new job, especially right now in this market, is tough and it's hard. That's why I said you feel a little bit grateful because you don't have to go through that at the time, but you should still probably see what's out there. You never know what opportunities you can find, but yeah, yeah, it's good to see it in some aspect of numbers. Leave it at that.
Don't have layoffs. And Pim has seen this firsthand. This is Pim. He's a software engineer in the Netherlands, and he had to go through seeing his own colleagues get let go from his team.
I guess the slacker was let go. The person who was dragging the team down was let go. But you could really notice over the next couple of weeks the mood shift in the office. Like someone's missing. Everyone has their own personality, and you kind of expect a particular kind of energy in the room. And when that energy is no longer there, it's a little awkward. So yeah, it was awkward. It was kind of demotivating, and for a while I did think about quitting, but I didn't in the end. So
this makes sense too. I mean, if you see others around you getting let go, then the morale starts to shift, and you can't help but wonder, are you next? The trust becomes strained between employee and employer. There's that unspoken rule that when you join a company, if you work hard and do well, then you'll continue to stay employed. But when the psychological safety is removed from the equation, then it breeds a lot of mistrust.
Mass layoffs. Using someone's livelihood to balance the books, right? It's so normal in America today that we don't even understand how broken and how damaging it is, not only to human beings, but to business. And so we've literally created cultures in which every single day, everybody comes to work and lies, hides, and fakes. And we're asking our youngest generation to work and succeed and find themselves and build their confidence and overcome their addiction to technology and build strong relationships at work. We're asking them to do this, and these are the environments we've created.
And he's right. I mean, we promise certain things to people that are just coming into the workforce, only to pull out of that promise as soon as the market starts to take a downturn. In fact, people are so taken aback by layoffs that they're more likely to quit after seeing their colleagues get let go. A recent article showed that coworkers of people that got laid off were 7.7% more likely to quit themselves. They tend to experience survivor syndrome. It's a term used to describe the feeling someone has when they've survived a round of layoffs. It includes a lot of guilt and sometimes confusion over why they were spared over someone else. It might sound dramatic, but people who experience this describe it as a very real and overwhelming feeling. It can even start to impact their ability to function in a role, especially since they've probably had to absorb new tasks that were once handled by someone else. So just being real for a moment, I saw my own colleagues get pushed out of the company, and it definitely didn't help morale on the team. For me, it just signaled that we were all replaceable at the end of the day, and that we, the leftovers, had to prove that the money that they were spending on us actually mattered to the company's bottom line. It really put things into perspective for me. I started to realize that this is just a job at the end of the day. It pays my bills, gives me something to do, but honestly, they could lay me off at any time, no matter how hard I worked. So it didn't really make sense to go beyond what was expected of me. I was tired of letting my health get out of hand for a company that didn't really actually care about me. I alluded to this earlier in the video, but getting laid off sucks. There's no way around that. It's the worst. There's no question about it. I don't think it's the better option, but I also don't think not getting laid off is a good option either. For one, layoffs indicate that a company isn't doing well. This means lower profit margins, less
Okay, so as a tip here, real quick, just because there's a layoff does not mean a company is not doing well, actually. And for some proof of that, recently this year, a few months ago, I believe a company called by the name of Cisco did layoffs, and the owner said they're actually doing well. If you look at their numbers, their profits and revenue is all rising and stuff. They just felt like there was some places that they can skim down on, they that weren't as needed anymore, and some other areas they can grow in, so they committed layoffs. So just because a layoff happens doesn't entirely mean the company is doing bad, but in most cases that is the truth. As some for some clarity, like it can happen regardless. So even if your company is on the up, there are some stuff to worry about, and that's where I would say over inflated teams and team members is can become an issue, because even in the other video when we were talking about Asai, if your team is so large and there's not enough work for you guys, you can expect there to be some trimming done and happen to your team because they're overemployed. COVID, when it happened, they hired so many people, and then what happened? The companies got trimmed down because of how much people were in there. We were oversaturated, overinflated in all these different teams. Everybody wanted to join certain companies, and it just wasn't the best turnout that could have happened for a lot of people. So that's just going with that in mind.
Resources, less flexibility, and stricter deadlines. It usually creates an environment of scarcity. It also means that you might be watched more than you normally are. You might get the sense that you aren't trusted as much and that they're monitoring you to make sure you're actually very productive. This just feels like you have to prove yourself all over again. And Pim actually felt that way too.
After that person was let go, we noticed a more requiring stance on filling out comments, filling out tasks properly, keeping track of the time, better sticking to deadlines. And, that might not have been per se because of him. It could have been that the company was trying to be more, efficient with their time, but it did kind of impact us negatively because we were used to getting a lot of freedom, getting a lot of time, which was great for morale. And the fact that we didn't get that anymore did hurt us.
Clearly, the trust had been broken, but not because of anything that Pim said or did, but it was because of the nature of the layoffs going on around him. You and your work starts to become a lot more transactional. You're not really seen as a person anymore. Are you worth the amount that you're making? Are you actually bringing value to the company? I chatted with Tanuj about this recently as well. He's a software engineer at a startup, and he saw some negative consequences to layoffs going on as well.
During the layoffs, I actually thought the workloads had been increased a lot for me because they do not want to hire anybody. Because
Another thing I want to talk about. Thank you for him saying that, because this is a clip of what happened in the intro. Actually, let him finish first before I dive into that, and then when he finishes, I'll talk about it.
they want to save up their expenses somehow. So there is that. Well, because I am currently actually handling one of their projects, one of their main life projects, and they want me to support two other projects as well. So it's kind of literally bogging down us with the projects and all. Supporting 2-3 other projects as well. So it kind of literally bogging down on me as in a mental aspect actually, because in this year only, when I started working in the company, I have fallen sick like 3 to 4 times. So yeah, it really is affecting.
With layoffs, there's
Okay, so now that he finished that, there's a lot to actually kind of take in there, if you don't know. So this goes back to having too many team members and knowing the balance. Good management is knowing the right amount of balance of the people that you need to maintain the current workload that is going on. In my eyes, that's what a good manager does. That's what great management does, because it protects your jobs and you still get the work done in the time manner that it goes in. If you look at it, right? Software engineers, what do we work in? Sprints. Every sprint is entitled to a certain amount of points, certain type of workload, and the higher level you are, maybe if you're a staff or something, you may be required to do more points in the sprint than some of the juniors. It just may depend on whatever company that you are currently staying at. But the thing is, if like COVID at times, when I first became an intern once, we had so many people on the team that there was sometimes a certain point of time where I felt like there wasn't much work to do. And then you would like have to try to really look into finding work to accomplish and really look for things yourself. But this is as an intern. Is this isn't as oh I was fully in my role or whatnot. But now that I'm fully in my role, the market's changed, companies always change, and things around that regard, and people change. So now being a full time software engineer, we or I should say I know how much work that I can maintain. And having a manager that doesn't want to overhire can, if they know where everybody's limitations are at and where how productive everybody is at and what we can maintain and get done, that makes sense. But if you guys are spread thin, this is the problem right here. That layoffs can cause two issues here. If you're spread thin already and layoffs happen, you're just going to get thinner, which means you're going to get more work to do. If you have the correct amount of people on the team and unfortunately people leave or, get laid off, where do you think the other projects and work have to go to now? It goes to the people who are left. Now we have more responsibilities, more work to accomplish, more work to balance ourselves against. And maybe now one project was getting accelerated at such a quicker rate, but now that engineer has to take on two projects, both of them slowed down to some degree. And that's just how it's going to work. That's statistically how it's going to work out. How time is. Time isn't infinite in a day. So yeah, you're going to always bring into the workload. The only way that layoffs will help a person's workload or just maintain it to a normal balance is if there's just way too many people on your team and you didn't have stuff to do in the first place. Now you actually have to do more work that you were probably supposed to do that many other people do. If they're under the right management, who knows? But that's from my experiences and take. Getting sick, I notice some people get sick a lot depending on how much work they're doing, but some like I don't get sick at all. It doesn't matter how much work I'm doing. Maybe I get really tired at times depending on how much work I'm doing. And that this goes beyond just work itself. This goes on I have the podcast stuff to do. I do so much extra stuff outside of work. So all of this added together extremely impacts my health regarding sleep goes, but that's something that I'm just willing to sacrifice. Everybody else it impacts them very differently. But yeah, let's get back into it.
There's this expectation that more needs to get done in the same amount of time, no matter what the cost. Tanuj even mentioned that his mental health was affected because of having to juggle all these different projects. Again, getting laid off means that you no longer have financial security, and that's a big deal. You have bills to pay, and suddenly your life gets upended because you no longer have a job. So there is something to say about still having a job and getting paid, but it's kind of a similar concept to surviving versus thriving. No matter which category you fall into, you'll each have your own set of problems to deal with. I personally wouldn't want to be forced out of a company against my will, but I also don't want to bend over backwards just to keep my head afloat. Okay, so how can companies actually re-engage people that are left over? Is it more morale events or more interesting work? What do they need to do to create a safe space for employees to be able to breathe again? Well, of course, I read another article to answer this question. Okay, so one thing that employers can do is being transparent and empathetic. So this article talks about how often layoffs are announced to employees with no reason or insight into the decision making. Even if you can't go into specific details or give too much information, let employees understand why the layoff was necessary. Take responsibility for layoffs and outline what is being done to prevent them in the future. And I do think this really matters. Communication is key here. If you suddenly see a bunch of people being let go or fired without any explanation, it really makes you worried about your position at the company because, these people were let go and there's no explanation whatsoever. So what does that mean for you? What does that mean for your workload? What does it mean for the future of the company, right? So if it goes unaddressed, it just feels like you're being left out of the loop and that you're not important enough at the company to be given an explanation for this, right? Because it's going to affect you a lot when people are laid off from the team. So it's important that managers get behind this immediately and start to give more information about what's going on. So another one is check in with your people, which kind of goes hand in hand with what we just talked about. How are those who are still with the company feeling? What are they worrying about? Help your leaders support their teams through the aftershock of a layoff with information and resources. As you make changes after a layoff, include leaders of all levels in change management plans. Again, this is super important. If you just kind of leave this weird thing in the air hanging where people have been laid off and you don't really want to talk about it, obviously people are going to talk behind your back about what's going on and speculate. And that's when things kind of get out of hand because our imagination is much more wild than reality. So if we don't know what's going on, we're going to start making assumptions, and those assumptions will probably not be good. And then the company also has to maintain the employee experience. Your departing employees also carry your reputation with them. Do all you can to create a supported, positive separation experience. While you may be cutting costs, there are simple, no-cost things you can do to maintain a culture of high care and trust. Can your recruiters become outplacement specialists, resume editors, or interview coaches? Can your HR team adopt a high care approach to the separation? So there are things in the system that you can do as well. So I think HR is a big part of it because HR is typically the group of people that are letting this person go, right? They're physically talking to this person with the hiring manager usually and letting them go. And so it's important that they do this with a level of empathy and in a way where it's definitely not mutual, but at least the separation is mutual, right? So don't make it a difficult, ugly process. This should be a process that, as much as possible, it should be pleasant for the person being let go. So even with packages, right? With severance packages, I feel like companies should be pretty generous because they chose to employ people, especially with tech, right? The tech industry in general employed during COVID because there was so much digital traffic and e-commerce traffic that all these companies had to quickly hire as many software engineers as possible. Now, as soon as that traffic started to die down, and obviously other reasons as well, AI and some other innovations came out, they started letting people go. So it is a contract at the end of the day. Just, don't think of it as more than that, but there has to be some humanity or empathy to this contract as well. And the last thing is show appreciation. Show heartfelt, genuine personal appreciation for your employees who will continue with you after the layoffs and who will depend on you to keep going. A message that accompanies a sincere gesture of thanks for their understanding and continued contributions will go a long way to reassure them that they're valued. Don't forget that these employees that are staying are choosing to stay. As I mentioned earlier, there's an increased chance, 7.7% chance of your employees.
All right. There's a lot to unpack about those 4 steps. So we're going to go back and we're going to being transparent and empathetic, right? We're going to just go, I'm going to click through them. This has been a great video. But no matter how empathetic and transparent you are, people are going to feel what they feel when their peers get laid off, unfortunately. But it is correct that the more transparent that you actually are of what's going on, and the more empathetic that you are to their feelings, the way that the wording comes out when you speak to the people under you, all play into making a larger group feel better and wanted and maintained there. So that is a big thing. You just have to know the right way to approach it, especially for everybody who's staying left over. At the end of the day, people are going to feel what they want to feel. They're not going to feel 100% about it. You're not going to convince 100% of people. And that's just how it is. For the second thing, that's something that I actually, to check in with your people. My managers and stuff, we do monthly and weekly check-ins all the time. But after a layoff, I don't know beyond that how upper management deals with that situation and checking in with other managers to get a vibe from their people and stuff. I'm not in that position. I've never been in those higher level talks of being in that people. I've never laid somebody off. So I really can't talk to this point too much because I already have check-ins and stuff with my managers and stuff when we talk about various different topics and things going on in that aspect, which are all very nice, regardless. And another thing is managers get laid off too. Management, VPs, part of layoffs are also part of them too. So You might not have a manager to check in on you, depending on the situation. The org can be changing, and you can lose. It's not funny, but you can lose people who were under you or above you as well. So you no longer have those people who will check in on you, which is also becomes difficult in those. And none of these scenarios are 100%, of course. Maintaining the employee experience, I feel like, is one of the hardest things to do because that person's going. Yes, you did employ us and you wanted us because we got hired. This is the part where the management and the higher ups need to figure out a good balance of that actual amount of workers they need to maintain their company at the right level regarding costs, priorities, workload, all of this kind of stuff. But yes, give us their severance. And there's also people who want to get laid off to get the severance because they can just go somewhere else. There's people like that. So everybody's not bummed about some. There's people who want to get laid off, especially those who stay. Some of those people who stay after layoffs are hoping to get laid off, not because they want to stay there as well. Which, hey, I say it really depends on the job market. If the job market was really hiring and booming, it would be way easier for people to just quit and go somewhere else. Right now, it's quite difficult. So yeah, you're gonna have people that wait on and want to get those packages and whatnot um, from that also. And yeah, regardless of the last one was showing appreciation, regardless of somebody staying or having being forced to leave, I definitely do agree with that as far as appreciating all they've done, especially if it's their managers and knowing what they've contributed, how they've been able to contribute, your appreciation for it, and being able to support them after that. I feel like is a way greater thing as far as that because it's not your fault that you're getting laid off, unless you were fired. If you're fired, it's your fault. Most cases, getting laid off, it's not your fault in a sense. Well, the one person said the underperformer got laid off on his team, the Netherlands, but it things happen at times. Nothing is perfect, and that's just how it goes out. Thanks for Pooja for a great video. That was about the end of it. She just went through that. So don't. I'm gonna leave this video linked in the description. Go subscribe to her channel. She does makes amazing content, especially with software engineers. For us, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know how you guys are feeling about this. Let me know about your experiences in the comments regarding layoffs. If you guys want me to talk about some of my personal experiences of surviving layoffs and how the culture is, let me know and I will make a video on the personal channel about this as well. So, thank you all. Peace. See you guys next time.